Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today we are looking at the Werewolf Master solo build for Murkmire. This is a werewolf build. I know, I finally did it. People asked me to and I finally did it, so here you go. So let's get right into it. We are a Nord with this. Nord isn't quite the best, but it is actually really good because it does give you that health pool that you need and it gives you that stamina pool you need to get really good setup for this particular type of build. We are running with a 2,568 weapon damage. It does go up pretty high, almost 3k when we're fully buffed up. And we are running the magic recovery with stamina, you know, decent magicka, decent stamina recovery. When we use our pots, oops, again, my bad. When we use our pots, so we go up to 1,144 magic recovery with an 858 stam recovery. When we're in werewolf form, if we use a pot, we actually go up to 1,000 something stam recovery, which is really good. Our weapon damage, like I said, 2,568 with a 44% weapon critical, which is perfect where this build needs to be. It doesn't need to be much higher. If you want to build it higher, you can. But with the way we have this set up, we are using, or we do have a 17k spell with the 17k physical. Both really close to each other, which is good also. Moving on, we have the Lady Mundus Stone for the extra spell and physical resist. You can go with the Warrior if you want for extra weapon damage, but if you want to get good survivability, you need that high resist there. So, we do have Major Savagery on both bars, so that's really good. And then on top of that, we do have Tri-Stat Food, which is also really good. So, moving on now to the gear. We are running Selene's for the high damage output this set has. As you can see, 1 piece is max stam, 2 piece, when you deal direct damage, you have a 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that mauls the closest enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for 16k damage. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. This thing goes off like crazy. It's gross. Moving on, we do have another set which is kind of unusual. We are using the Blood Moon set. Now, you don't have to use Blood Moon. There is another set you can get from the I forget the name of the dungeons or the name of the dungeon, but we'll go in here and look at DLCs. You can get it from the Horns of the Reach, and there is a monster set, or a set that increases your bleed damage by 20%. That's another really good one for this build. Because it does the same thing. It does weapon damage, I believe, 2 things of crit, or it does stam 2 things of crit, and then 20% bleed damage. That's a really good one. But this one here, when you deal critical damage with a melee light attack, you gain a stack of blood scent for 8 seconds. When you gain 5 stacks, you become frenzied for 5 seconds, increasing your melee light attack damage by 30% and your attack speed by 50%. And then that can go off every 18 seconds. It's got a long cooldown, I'm not going to lie, but it's really good still. It's a really good set. And then moving on, we are using Hide of the Werewolf because Hide of the Werewolf gives us max health, max stam, weapon damage, and then when we take damage, we generate 5 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds, so that's really good also. And then we are using two-handed with a bow. So going over the traits real quick, we are using a light helm, medium or heavy shoulder with the Nernhoned everything. Nernhoned on everything except for our chest is reinforced and our shoulder is reinforced. So these 2 pieces do need to be reinforced to get that high resistance. The rest needs to be Nernhoned to get that resistance even higher. It does lower our stats some because we're not using infused, but we want those extra stats and those extra defenses. We are a Warden with this, and Warden does work out really well because of certain things. So, moving on to the jewelry, we are using 2 healthy with weapon damage enchants, so you do need to transmute these into healthy to get that higher health. But we are using an infused with a magic recovery. You don't have to use this, guys. The reason I do is because I use magic abilities to buff myself, and it's to keep that resource return on that. So, moving on to the weapons, we are using a stamina enchant with a stamina absorb. So an absorb stamina enchant, which does physical damage and gives us stamina back. This helps when we're doing our mauling and stuff. And then on the back bar, we are using the weapon damage enchant. Now, just to show you guys real quick, with this setup, when you get buffed up with weapon damage, I gotta get the right one, there we go. So when you get buffed up, you go to a 3004 weapon damage, so that's not like superb or phenomenal, but it does work out really well for this build for solo play. I wish I could get it higher, but with the bow, and if you get the bow up for next, it's like a 3800 weapon damage, so almost 4K weapon damage, which is good for this type of build, but unfortunately you don't get that 4K when you're in beast form. This build is actually better with dual wield, because then you use an absorb stamina and you use a weapon damage in the offhand, so that way you can get that weapon damage proc a lot because you're using the werewolf form on the front bar. So you want to keep that up as much as possible. When you switch to werewolf form, that way you get the weapon damage enchant procking, so it boosts your weapon damage even more. Dual wield is better, but you lose out on having an extra shield, which when you're solo playing, you need things that keep you alive. So now, going on to the skills, make sure you get all your passives. You want all the passives of the werewolf. You want all your class passives, especially, because these come in handy. And then on to the weapons side. Two-handed, you want all the passives. Bow, you want all the passives. And then on to the armor. Light armor, you want the top 3. Medium armor, you want them all. And heavy armor, you want the top 3. Because this is a 5-1-1 medium build. Moving on to soul or world stuff, soul magic, you want the top 2, and then of course, like I said, with werewolf, you want all the passives. All the passives play really well into this, and they did fix the savage strength. This one that increases your physical and spell resist by 10,000. This thing gets 27k resistances. It's insane. It's nuts. And then on top of that, your weapon damage does increase by 18% while in werewolf form, which is also excellent. So, on top of that, Fighters Guild, all of them. You want all of them, because you are using Dawnbreaker on, or, well, you can use Dawnbreaker on the back bar. That's what I would usually use. But I went with Permafrost because it's a nice damage reduction ability while you're soloing. But you do want to go with all of them, because you are using Evil Hunter on both bars, so you do get 3% extra weapon damage, which is really nice. So, Undaunted, you want these passives, of course. And if you don't have them, don't stress it, guys. Like, they're important, but you can get by without 6% extra stats. Nord, you want all the passives. And then Alchemy, you want medicinal use, provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Alright, now let's go over the skills on the bar. And this is just for this. If you're doing werewolf and whatever, you can set the skills how you want them for when you're in werewolf form. But your skills, you know, they do change when you go into werewolf form. But going back to the skills we have on our bar, we are using Brawler, of course, for that damage up front, that damage over time, and the shield. Insane shield strength on this. So, next up we have Subterranean Assault. This helps us get Major Fracture, Major Fracture, which reduces enemies' physical resist by 5,280, making our damage a lot better. And then on top of that, it does 11,320 poison damage to all enemies in front of it in a 7 by 20 meter range. So it's a big area that it covers. Next up, we have Spike Bone Shield. Again, absorbing damage. It creates a shield that absorbs 34% of your max health, and then on top of that, it does 42% of direct damage back to the enemies, which is good. So if they hit you with a direct damage attack, it deals damage back to them, which is really, really good, especially in solo play. Anything that can help you do damage while soloing is good. So that's really good. Next up, we do have Polar Winds here. This is going to be our main source of healing when we're not in werewolf form. It does cost Magicka, so that's why we have the higher Magicka, is for this. It heals for 16% of our max health and an additional 10% of our max health over 10 seconds. If you're in a small group, which you might be, it heals the other person too, which is kind of good. Next up, Evil Hunter. Really good for that Major Savagery. It does take a skill slot, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, you could use the power pots. That's the thing. When you're solo playing, you don't want to be activating a potion that gives you one resource. You have to have a potion that gives you all resources and gives you all recoveries, because it's going to give you the best results in the end, versus something that gives you a boost to your weapon critical and your weapon damage and just stamina back. So, because you can get those from other things. Next up, Werewolf Berserker. This is... Now, the other one works out really well because we are a warden, and we have animal companion, and we have bond with nature, that whenever any of our companions die, we get healed. It does work with the pack leader, but unfortunately the pack leader's pets have a lot of health, and they're really hard to kill. And when you're soloing a dungeon, they can't die. So, kind of pointless. So I go with the Werewolf Berserker because it does a lot more damage. It transforms into a beast, fearing nearby enemies, but while transformed, your light and heavy attacks bleed, or your light attacks bleed for 16,755 physical damage over 8 seconds. Your heavy attacks deal 50% slash damage, and your maximum stamina is increased by 30%. So, but while slotted, your stamina recovery is increased by 15%. That's why we keep this here. Moving on to the back bar, we do have Venom Arrow. Of course, that's my go-to for solo play, because if you hit an enemy while casting an ability, they are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. Really good in that solo play experience. It does do decent damage and decent damage over time. Next up, Endless Hail. This does a lot of damage over time. And it covers a 5-meter radius. Bullnetch, really good for giving you stamina back, and it gives you major sorcery, major brutality, but you just want it for the major brutality. Next we have Ice Fortress, Expansive Frost Cloak. Ice Fortress is better, but we're playing a Nord, and if you play a Nord, you get 8%, or Ice Fortress gives you 8% damage reduction. Nords give you a 6% all the time. So you don't really need that 8%, because then it makes the 6% from the Nord a multiplicative. So Expansive Frost Cloak is better if you're playing a Nord. Next up, Evil Hunter again for the major savagery, and then Permafrost. This is a great ability, guys. It does an AoE around you, 10 meters. Any enemy hit takes damage, frost damage, for 8 seconds, and quite a bit. And their movement speed is reduced by 70%. But while you have this up, you get 30% damage reduction for you and your allies near you. Damaging an enemy 3 times with this storm will stun them for 3 seconds. So it's a nice CC. And that is the skills. Moving on now to... I guess I need to go over the werewolf skills too, so let me do that. So going over the werewolf skills here, guys... You'll see that we took Brutal Pounce. Brutal Pounce, pounce an enemy with Primal Fury, dealing 6,288 physical damage to them and an additional 3,142 physical damage to nearby enemies. That's really good because while you're in a dungeon, you do attack groups, so it's really good to get that AoE damage in there. And it's nice. It's got a 5-meter radius, so really good if you got a pack of ads coming at you or something. Next, we have Hirsing's Rage. This invokes the Huntsman's Blessing, healing you for 49% of your max health and granting you major brutality, increasing your weapon damage by 20% for 20 seconds. You will be using this, not a lot, but enough, and it is a Magicka skill. Next up, we have Defending Roar. Roar with Bloodlust to terrify up to 6 nearby enemies, fearing them for 3.3 seconds, and applying Major Fracture to them, reducing their physical resistance by 5,280 for 10 seconds. It gets a long uptime of that Major Fracture, which is nice. So, Howl of Agony, sorry. Crush enemies with a deafening howl, dealing 12,158 physical damage. It does a lot more than that when you're in wolf form. You deal 30% more damage to enemies that are feared, so that's why we use this first and then hit them with this. So it's really, really powerful. So you want to pop this and then this right afterwards. Next up, we have Claws of Life. Maul enemies in front of you with Tainted Claws, dealing 4,610 physical damage and an additional 15,090 disease damage over 10 seconds. When you're in werewolf form, it's a lot higher. So, overall, really good setup on the skills there. Now let's jump over to CP. Starting with the red tree, we do have 66 in Ironclad, reducing your direct damage taken by 22%. We have 2 into medium armor focus, just to give us that little bit of extra to keep our stamina, our physical and spell resistance almost equal. Moving on over here, we have 56 into Hardy, reducing damage taken from physical poison, disease damage by 12%, and then 56 into Elemental Expert, reducing Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. When you add the 6% from the Warden to both of these, you actually go up to an 18% reduced damage. So almost 20% there. And then we have 31 into Thick Skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. Thick Skin and Ironclad do stack with Hardy and Elemental Defender and your 6%. So that 18% gets stacked with these ones. Moving on, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. We have 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. Really good. And then 56 into Warlord, reducing your break free cost by 20%. We have 23 into Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 14%, and then 23 into Bash Focus, reducing your bash cost. And I'll say this again in this video so people understand why we have this here. As a solo player, you have to learn mechanics of enemies. When you can see what they're going to do, and you know what Bash can do to them when they're doing like a power attack or something like that, and you can knock them, and then it sets them off balance, it also improves your damage, especially as a stamina player. So, really good. We have 43 in Arcanus, increasing your magic recovery by 10%. 43 in Tenacity, increasing your stamina return of fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. We are a medium armor build, so we don't get as much back as we would if we were in heavy armor. So it does require us to heavy attack a little bit more, but that's okay. You do a lot of heavy attacks as a werewolf. We have 56 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 20%. We have 26 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 11%. And then moving over here, we have 43 into Blessed, increasing our healing done by 10%. This helps with our howl and stuff. 15 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light and heavy attacks of all stamina weapons by 9%. I keep doing this. You want this at 16. Because you want that 10% increase. 40 into Master in Arms, increasing your direct damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. And then going over here, we have 56 into Mighty. This increases physical, poison, disease damage by 12%. 56 on the Thaumaturge, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 20%. And then 56 into Precise Strikes, increasing critical damage, healing, and stamina by 20%. And then 3 into Piercing, just to give you a little bit more on that major fracture. So that's the setup, that's the build, guys, so far. But you guys probably want to see, you know, the normal thing. What's it like in action? So let's go find out. Starting with this, we're going to go ahead and buff up with our Ice, because we want those extra resistances, even in werewolf form. Gonna go ahead and drop some AoEs. I'm going to get this trash group killed real quick. And this boss, so we can get up to the main boss, guys. So I keep forgetting that my thing's not going off in time. Gonna go ahead and just do it. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm not very good with the werewolf, guys. Alright, so now that I've shown a little bit of it, let's go ahead and get out of here. And I want to show it this while I'm running away. 26k spell, physical resist, 3,300 weapon damage. We do have 34% weapon crit, which kind of sucks. But we do get a lot of crits out of this, and we do get a lot of good play structure out of it. It's a really fun build. I like it. But the bleed one, the bleed set that I was talking about that's in the Horns of the Reach, is a lot better set for this build because of that 20% more bleed damage. Really plays well with this build. The one I chose, the Savage one, I only like it for solo play for when I'm using my normal form, because if I get those 5 stacks of damage from the critical damage, I'll see if I can find an enemy that I can't kill right away. I'll see if I can get it to proc, and if I do... Okay, so I got 1 stack, I think. Oh, it didn't go off. I didn't get enough damage out. But if I can... Oh, there we go, the Wamasu. That'll be perfect for this. Where is this stupid bugs? These things are annoying. Alright, so... There we go. There we go. We got it. We got 1 stack. Ah. But if you can get that to the 5 stacks, that thing will allow you to attack like super fast. And you can just sit there and spam light attacks. And if you're in a group of trash, those light attacks hitting harder and faster allow you to just cleave through stuff really quick in trash fights. That's why I like that set. But other than that, like, the bleed set is so much better when you're in werewolf form. Especially with Hide to the Werewolf and you have all that ultimate gen. Because I can already turn into a werewolf again, and I haven't even really done anything. It's just a matter of getting hit. So, but that's it for the build, guys. I hope you guys like the Werewolf Master solo build. It's really fun. Like I said, though, go with that I think it's called Blood Drinker is the name of the set. It's a medium set, and you can get it in the new Horns of the Reach. It's kind of cool, like I said. So here it is this set right here, Blood Drinker, there it is. It gives you weapon crit ×2, weapon damage, and then on top of that, increases the damage you deal with bleed damage overtime effects by 20%. So it does increase your werewolf bleeds by 20%, which makes it really good. So, but that's the build, guys. and I hope you guys like it. I like this build. It's something I would actually play, and I've actually been considering it because I do play a Nord Warden, but I like the Ice build better, so I like my Death Knight better, just by a little bit more. It's more to my style. So, but yeah, if you like the build, you know what to do. Hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.